when the document opens up, okay, by default, there are no rulers. There's nothing, all right? So if you hit Command R, all right, you'll notice rulers pop up. You can also go to View, and you can go to Rulers, Hide Rulers, Show Rulers. Rulers are important. 2 reasons. They're rulers. The other is that way you know your document is in the right settings. You can also right-click right on the ruler and change the measurement that it's in, which is really nice. Rulers also allow you to create guides. All right? Guides are the ability to come over here and drag over a guide that I can actually follow and use, okay? Which is nice. All right? By default, usually the guides are locked. All right? Mine aren't because I've unlocked them. Because guides work just like objects in Illustrator. I can actually grab it and move it around. And annoyingly so, if I draw an object like this, and I'm like, let me move the object, and I grab it, I move the guides too, which is really kind of a pain. All right? And I can also just delete them that way. So your rulers are really important to go through. All right? Jordan had pulled up he asked me about the grid. If those of you want to work in a grid, you can actually go to View, all right? And you can say Show Grid. And so you can actually go into your settings and adjust this grid if you like to work with the grid. Sometimes I actually work with a grid if I'm really trying to be extremely precise, okay? And that's under here, all right? That's not the exciting stuff. So the tool I wanted to show you, and I think I showed it to Sam yesterday, was, and I'm going to do this very quickly, all right? So make sure your eyes are up here. Pathfinder tool, all right? So if you draw an object, let's say I draw a square, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I want to cut a hole in the square. So I get in a circle, and I go like this, and I'm like, oh, well, I can just take this, and I can make it white. Boom, I've got a hole in the square. Well, you don't have a hole in the square. You have a square with a white circle on top of it. All right? And in the design world, could you get away with it? Yeah, probably. But it's not the ideal scenario and not the way you really want to do it. You want to punch that hole through it so that it's actually a true hole. And you do that with the Pathfinder tool. So depending on your setup, the Pathfinder can be over here. You can also simply go to Window and Pathfinder. And I like to pull it up this way so that I have it right here. We're just going to talk about the shape modes for right now very quickly because I actually have a little tutorial project for you guys to go over on this down the road. All right, we actually work with each little piece. But basically, I've got unite, minus front, intersect, and exclude. And the way these work is this. Right now, if I take these 2 objects and I click unite, they become one object. So if I wanted to draw something that was a little more complex, I could add a bunch of shapes to it, okay, and then turn it into one shape. Why do I want to do that? Because that way it's all one object, and when I change the colors as opposed to grouping it, everything will be together, so I can unite it. Okay, so that's unite. The other one is minus front, and that's how you're going to get your hole. Here, I grab it, minus front, boom. Hole in my object. See that? Okay, and again, I'm doing this quickly. We have a whole tutorial we're going to go over later on. All right, the next one, and again, both objects have to be activated or highlighted, is intersect. And what happens here is when I click intersect, it leaves only the part that's intersected. Shouldn't hear clicking. Okay? And then the last one is the opposite, exclude. So it does that. Okay? And again, we're going to go over that more in depth, but I saw a lot of you covering up stuff, or like if I wanted to take this and make a puzzle piece, I could take this, grab these, unite them, there's that puzzle piece, and if I wanted to do the opposite, all right, and grab this and make a puzzle with the circle out of it, I could go like this, grab it, minus the front. Rather than having to draw it by hand, okay? Not that it's impossible to draw by hand, but it's much easier to do with the Pathfinder tool, okay? So that's the Pathfinder tool. The other thing I wanted to go over was direct selection one more time. And that is, no matter what what tool you use to draw, whether it's the brush, whether it's the pencil, or whether it's the pen, okay? Direct selection is here. So you've got your regular selection tool. The regular selection tool will allow you to move your object. It'll allow you to scale your object and do stuff like that. When you click on a direct selection tool, that gives you direct access to each point in your piece of art, okay? So for this particular one, I can arc it, I can change it. And again, this is really helpful if you draw a shape and you don't like the way it's drawn, you can actually adjust it without having to redraw the entire thing. You can also grab your pen tool, or if you really want to get into it, your add anchor point tool. But the pen tool, if you hover over a line, you'll notice it becomes a plus. And everywhere I click with that plus, it adds another anchor point. And I can go in here to that anchor point and really fine tune how this thing works. Okay? So both of those are really important. The last one is filling in objects. Here's what I don't want you to do. I draw an object. Now I'm going to fill it in with a color. I'm going to go in here, grab this awful pink, and I'm just going to start going like this. You get the idea. Don't do that. By the time you're done filling this in, it will have taken you way too long, and you'll have this mess. And you'll be like, oh, I want to try to erase this. This comes out of here. And I'm going to grab my eraser, and I'm going to go like this, and it's going to do something really funky, like it's going to trim off this other half of the line, okay, which it will do sometimes, because you'll notice how quickly the line adjusts. Filling in an object, okay, this is one of those things that gets people really, really kind of confused. There's a couple of ways to do it. The right way is to draw the object as a whole piece, and then use the fill color right here to fill it in, okay? If for some reason you've drawn an object that's not completed, let's say you draw it like this, all right, and you want to fill it in, you can still use the fill, or you can adjust this, okay? And the way to connect 2 points, I drew this with the brush. If I grab the brush tool again, you'll notice when I hover over the end, see how the little asterisk disappears? Well, that means I'm connected to this line. So I can grab this line and go right over to this line and finish the object. The same thing with the pen tool. All right, if I draw something with the pen tool, I hit escape, and I've got this object here, all right, and I want to connect these 2 lines. I grab the pen tool, I hover over, the asterisk disappears, I can click, and I can complete the object. In Illustrator, you really want to practice drawing in complete shapes, because trying to sketch like you do on a sketchbook is really a nightmare to try to pull it all together. All right, it's a very different drawing technique. Okay, the other way you can fill an object, all right, is let's say I draw a shape and I want to fill it. Underneath the brush tool is the blob brush tool. The blob brush tool is a little different. So let's say I did my whole little routine here where I started coloring this in. Well, with the blob brush tool, try to say that fast 10 times. As I color, right now it looks like a line, right? Well, as I finish, when I let go, that tells me it's a line. Well, this is now a shape. See that? So I can continuously, with the blob brush, fill this in. Okay? And I can make the brush bigger, double click on it. I've got my fidelity, I've got my size, so I can make a huge blob brush, and I can sit here and I can color it in. But again, you want to stay away from hand coloring in something like this because it just takes too long. Now it's done. Now I don't have all those lines that you'll see when you draw. All right, I just have this solid shape. So I just wanted to go over a few of those little pieces that you guys, as you're drawing and creating, because some of the stuff I'm seeing a lot of like hand coloring, like you're doing it with crayon or marker. We don't want to do it that way. Okay? Any questions? All right, cool. Back at it. Thank you.